The night I heard her whisper to the shadows, I knew my stepmother wasn't just mean. She was something else. I could hear her every word, even though she thought I was fast asleep. She spoke like she was having a conversation, but no one else was in the room. I'm Eerie, and my father remarried after my mother passed. At first, everything seemed fine, but it wasn't long before my stepmother started acting strange. She was always cold toward me, barely looking me in the eyes. She would scold me for the smallest things, but only when my father was away. It was like she enjoyed making me feel small. Then, she began disappearing at night. At first, I thought she was just restless. But then I noticed that every night, just around midnight, she'd slip out quietly. One night, I followed her, careful not to make a sound. She led me deep into the woods behind our house, walking like she knew the path by heart, even in the darkness. I hid behind a large tree and watched as she reached a small clearing where there were things hanging from the trees. Little dolls made from sticks and cloth, each one marked with something dark. She stood in the middle of them and started to chant in a language I didn't understand. Her voice sounded different, almost as if something else was speaking through her. After a few minutes, she stopped, looking around as if she sensed someone was watching. I held my breath, terrified she'd see me. She eventually turned back and walked home. But her face, it was twisted, almost like she was in pain. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing whispers, faint and sinister, even though I was alone in my room. The next day, I noticed strange bruises on my skin. I hadn't fallen or bumped into anything, but they were there, dark and painful. My stepmother smirked when she saw them, like she knew exactly how they got there. Over the next few weeks, things got worse. Objects in the house started moving on their own. Cold chills would run through me even in the hottest part of the day, and every time I caught her looking at me, her eyes seemed darker. I tried to tell my father, but he wouldn't listen. He was under her spell, too blinded by his love for her to see what was happening. One night, after I had another terrible nightmare where she was standing over me, whispering words that I couldn't understand, I decided to confront her. I went to her room and, just as I opened the door, I saw her reflection in the mirror. Her face was different, older, with sunken eyes and sharp features. She looked like a stranger. She looked like something not human. She turned to me, smiling in a way that chilled me to my bones. "Eerie," she whispered, "don't fight it. You belong to me now." I ran from the house that night, only stopping when I reached my aunt's house. I was shaking, trying to explain, but my aunt understood right away. She told me my stepmother wasn't just a mean woman. She was a witch who had done terrible things to children in other villages. She was known for draining the life out of those she envied, and she had chosen me as her next victim. With the help of my aunt and the village elders, we performed a protection ritual, and they warned my father. He finally opened his eyes to the truth, but by then, my stepmother was gone. She disappeared, leaving behind nothing but those eerie dolls and a sense of darkness that lingered in our home for months. I still feel her sometimes, in my dreams, in the shadows. And whenever I look in the mirror, I check to make sure she's not standing behind me, waiting for her chance to finish what she started.